The Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Monday, March 10th, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my co-host, Joe Hagmann. My son, together, we are the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report. Folks, share about their 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news, information, and analysis. This is stuff that you need to know right now, cutting through the fog of disinformation and lies. This is stuff that you need to know and act upon, and we're going to be providing it to you today. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look well beyond the headlines, the bylines, the fog of this disinformation to bring you the news behind the news. And for the new folks checking in this weekend, thank you very much for checking in with us from Washington State to Washington, D.C. to north into Canada and all across the world. Welcome. We broadcast live each and every weeknight, Eastern Time. It's 8 to 11 p.m. Our home base on the internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com, not related to any government agency. And, of course, we're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network there. Tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for tuning us in and purposely, deliberately listening to us. Thanks for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this minefield of events together. And, of course, thanks for your investment of time, the next 3 hours. We're going to leave you with more than you came with, we hope. Joe, welcome.
Glad to be here. We had a great show last night with Steve Quayle and Pastor David Langford. And for those of you who missed last week, we had some great guests. Tuesday we had Stan Deo. Also Monday we had my dad's intelligence insider for the second hour of the show. Wednesday we had Paul McGuire. Thursday Russ Dizdar. Friday we had John Moore. So if you guys missed any shows last week, go back and listen to the archives, as it was jam-packed with great information and great guests.
As soon as I have the chance, I'll be putting up the show summaries and what have you via our website. Just haven't had the chance to really update much of anything this past week. I've been otherwise busy. We'll get to it, though, folks. Just keep checking HomelandSecurityUS.com.
Yeah. We got a lot of news to get into tonight. We're also going to be taking your calls about halfway through the show, 9:30 Eastern at 661-244-9839. I think we're going to start tonight with this airplane, this Malaysia plane, Boeing 777, that went missing on Friday evening. And it seems to be somewhat of a mystery, as it has vanished completely. No trace of any wreckage, no black box, GPS being able to be located. And from what I understand, reading here, that it's pretty hard to take that black box and dismantle it and dismantle the GPS systems. They say up to 30 days after a crash into the ocean that the transponder and the black box should still be able to work.
Right. And as we have it right now, folks, in case you have not been following it, the search teams are still unable to find any trace of the airliner. As Joe said, the search is taking place in the South China Sea. Just where the last contact was made. Now, a U.S.-led search is also taking place near the Andaman Sea. Interpol is investigating whether up to 4 people had stolen passports and were aboard that aircraft. I'm sure they took their shoes off too, right?
CNN is reporting about a connection to two Iranians.
Mr. Ali.
Okay, one Iranian. And Mr. Ali has had dealings with this airport, booking flights, paying in cash, to where the lady who apparently waited on Mr. Ali,
travel agent.
She booked a few seats for him that apparently were not taken. Nobody boarded the plane with the tickets he purchased, and he repurchased more. And this is what happened with the second time. But she said that, in her opinion, it did not indicate any type of terrorism. He was a frequent customer, apparently. These are her words from a report. But still, we have a few issues here, big issues. No plane, no wreckage.
And no oil slick. Just to be clear, and Joe, sorry to interrupt you, but just to be clear, the oil slick that was spotted in that South China Sea area That wasn't an oil slick, or it wasn't. It was determined not to be related to that flight. That's number one. Number two, there was a picture floating around on Twitter of some debris alleged to be related, perhaps, to 777. No, not. It was not. The other thing, Natural News did this report. Mike Adams from Natural News did a report on that.
Now.
Yeah, you know what? I think the simplest explanation here is perhaps the best. I understand how odd this is. I'm not downplaying any type of oddities, but you know, I think we tend to overthink things. I just don't buy a lot of the concerns there.
Well, if we look at this from the perspective of a terrorist organization, we'll say, carrying this attack out and blowing up a plane, what would they have gained from no recognition, no plane? I mean, the plane vanishing. You know, you have a terrorist hijacking a plane. Usually they, the point I heard this point made on the radio today, that it's not necessarily, even though the people on the plane would probably be killed, it was not necessarily aimed at them. It would be to further some other, you know, terrorist agenda, to scare people, to show the weaknesses of.
No, I'd be more inclined to look at perhaps who was on that plane. In other words, who else was on that plane.
And this is where we come to a standstill from the reporting aspect of it. Are we getting the truth? There was 239 people on the plane. Who were these 239 people? I've heard some speculation that there were some important people on board, which is only speculation because it's not being reported anywhere in the news. I've heard also other people's theories that this plane has been taken away, you know, landed safely, and it will be used as for some sort of attack later. As I said, lots of speculation, no real facts, and until we find wreckage or understand better what has happened, if we ever get to that point, I don't think any theories are really worth, you know, digging too far into, because the possibilities are, I mean, there's a lot. It could have been a terrorist attack, it could have been a malfunction, it could have been a number of things. Well,
earlier today, the Vietnam media has reported that the Vietnamese Navy confirmed the plane crash into the ocean. That report's being disputed, and I think we're right in just waiting, folks. Just waiting. Look, it affects 200 and some people, their families, obviously the people aboard, their families. Let's look at this, and let's look at perhaps who else is on the plane. Let's reserve judgment until we can figure out what in the world happened here, and not by what the media tells us, but through alternative sources. I really think we just need to wait for a little bit and put this. Just wait until we can fit this into the puzzle. We've got a piece of the puzzle, I think, a puzzle, and if necessary, we should be able to wait, or we should wait. Not if necessary. I think it is necessary for us to wait and put that puzzle piece in later when we have a better idea where it fits.
All right. In other news, I found this article to be scary and fascinating. Global debt exceeds $100 trillion as governments binge. The amount of debt globally has soared more than 40% to $100 trillion since the first signs of the financial crisis, as governments borrowed to pull their economies out of recessions, and companies took advantage of record low interest rates, according to the Bank for International Settlements. The $30 trillion increase from $70 trillion between mid-2007 and mid-2013 compares with a $3.86 trillion decline in the value of equities to $58.3 or $53.8 trillion in the same period, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Now, it goes on to say the jump in the debt measured by the Basel, Switzerland-based BIS its quarterly review is almost twice the U.S.'s gross domestic product. Now, this is a huge problem, having the debt even 1% over the gross domestic product, let alone double what the GDP is. We are in so much debt, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, that we can't even pay back the interest on the debt. And it's not just America, it's globally.
I would also watch those people who are expecting silver to take off. As we enter the death throes, the active dying phase here of the petrodollar, I would expect to see perhaps another smackdown of metals, silver, gold. I really would. I wouldn't get too excited over this, though. In fact, SilverDoctors, I believe, .com had an article saying that the cartel could crash silver to like $15 per ounce. Well, that's fine, but that's temporary. That's price manipulation. And I really wouldn't. Those people who are listening to this broadcast and are holding silver, if it was a good buy at 21 or 22, if it was a good buy at 40, it certainly would be a good buy at 15. Just back the truck up. And in fact, the Silver Doctors is reporting this. Marshall's swing warns cartel could crash silver to 15. And they do say that looking at the charts, there could be a mild attack on silver.
You remember when your DHS insider told you a while back?
That's right.
About the fluctuation and more importantly, the devaluation of metals before a crisis would take place.
Right, and that was not very clearly defined in that conversation, except to say that watch the metals, and when metals hit a low. And from memory too, we had we had many conversations, but several about the metals market, and I was to believe, based on his information, that this would be a common thing toward the end of the petrodollar Ponzi scheme. And of course, that's what's taking place right now. However, that's what is said to take place now. In the same venue, in the financial venue, let's look at what is going on with Ukraine and Russia and such. And I think this has everything to do with metals. This has everything to do with an attack on the economy. The situation, Russia is said, now this according to Jim Willey, those who follow Jim Willey, Russia to demand rubles or gold for oil. U.S. dollar will decline 80% in the next 3 years. Well, go ahead.
Think of the amount of real inflation that we've seen just in the last couple of years. Milk is $5 a gallon, basically. Eggs, but the essentials people buy all the time have pretty much doubled since Obama took office, and I'm not blaming it on him, just in the time period. If the dollar, is continually attacked and eventually taken off as the world reserve currency status, we talked about this too at length, the prices are going to skyrocket, double initially, just by the fact that we're no longer the world reserve currency. I mean, gas, $8 a gallon, etc. Then comes inflation and hyperinflation.
Right. Now, this whole thing is an attack on the dollar, okay? And people, folks, please understand this. What we're seeing here is an orchestrated crisis. That this killing of the petrodollar is not necessarily coming from Russia solely or from outside of the United States. It's coming from within. And I'm sorry if this sounds like a broken record, but just think of the Titanic, and just think of buying a seat on the Titanic or getting tickets to the Titanic. This marvelous, beautiful ship, or at least that's how it was built. And you've got this first-class ticket, this unsinkable ship. And that's what the U.S. dollar is, or that's what the entire global fiat currency system is the Titanic. The passengers are the U.S. dollar, or is the U.S. dollar, in all portions thereof, and they're attempting to populate the Titanic. And once they get enough people, and don't forget what happened to the Titanic back in 1912 upon its sinking, they took out the people, or they had the builders, the owners of the White Star Line, had made sure that the people who opposed the Federal Reserve System were passengers on the Titanic. And of course, they perished with the sinking of the Titanic. That made the Federal Reserve System really easy to pass through without the opposition of those people. Well, in fact, some of the richest people who oppose the Federal Reserve System were aboard the Titanic. Well, we're seeing the metaphorical Titanic right now. What people are doing, or what the world, satanic Luciferian leaders of the world are doing, what they're doing is they're getting everyone into the Titanic, taking away the lifeboats, or certainly making sure that they can't be used, and pushing the Titanic out into an ice field. This way, they can sink it on their own time. They can sink it according to their own methods. So that's what we have to understand. None of this is an accident.
And as you put it in your metaphor to the Titanic, what they've done is they're getting as many nations to be crippled by the death of the dollar. They're getting as many nations to sign on to the dollar system. So when it is brought down, it doesn't just bring the country down; it brings down the world.
Right, and I think you might have heard this last Monday, from our financial insider. You know, what is taking place right here? We are in a kind of a very good situation where the dollar is up due to an increase in supply of dollars coming back into the U.S., the velocity of money and such. Well, that's fine, but that won't last. This is a systematic takedown of the U.S. dollar. And I just, what really drives me absolutely crazy is to hear or see people on different forums saying, oh, this is great. This is great. Of course, this will take out the Federal Reserve. No, it's not great. It's replacing the Federal Reserve with something much more nefarious, much larger.
Yeah, the owners of the Federal Reserve are the same owners of the IMF, the World Bank, the UN. They are the global elite.
That's right. And
remember Soros, I've had in great crisis. These people thrive when they bring about their economic calamities.
That's right. And what we're seeing is just a lot of maneuvering. And remember, Iraq, the first Gulf War, it took months upon months upon months, about 6 months before we actually struck Iran. Remember all the posturing, the military maneuvering in the first Gulf War back in early 90s. And, we told Saddam, we're coming. And what we're seeing is pieces being assembled, being marched into a specific end. And that includes the U.S. being marched back into conflict with Russia, all the Cold War in Ukraine and Crimea. And a lot of maneuvering lies ahead, but we're going to hit get a lot of hard jolts along the way. The death of the dollar doesn't mean the dollar dies in a day. Now, that would leave no time for the transference of minds and attitudes and perspectives. Folks, they expect the population, and the population will be sold on the magic act, not necessarily on the outcome. And think of it like card tricks. A lot are done by a magician. Many are done in order to get the audience thinking that it's really magic, not just sleight of hand, in that mindset, if you will. So in order to get us maneuvered for this new currency, they need to show us these tricks, these new tricks, and that we're in total belief that it's magic and not deceit or deception. And then they've got to allow enough time. Folks, have you ever seen something, witnessed something where it just doesn't make sense? I don't know. You might be driving and suddenly a bear jumps over the guardrail or something. There's a second. There's a period of time where it just doesn't register, right?
I'm laughing because I remember a trip we took as private investigators. We were driving, and we saw these two deer cross the road. Well, they crossed the road and jumped over the barrier, but what was on the other side wasn't woods. It was a cliff. Do you remember that?
I do. And
we sat there and thought for a second as we drove by, what happened to those deer? Did they just jump off a cliff and die? Did they? Were they able to?
Yeah, I mean, we laugh now because of the visual picture that it created, but the poor deer. I mean, but nonetheless. But if you look at something, if you witness something that your mind can't compute, it doesn't register with you. You know what I'm talking about. This is what people are going to go through. They've got to wrap their mind around this fact that these Federal Reserve notes in their pockets and in their wallets and their purses are going to be worthless. And there's going to be a processing time for this new paradigm that's going to be taking place. The dollar will be worthless and then worth nothing. And people are going to need time to process that. And also, they're going to need that time to change their views on the concept of the dollar. See, the people who are out there, and this is one thing that people don't really understand, I don't believe. And if anyone writes about this, they don't really write about it in the big picture way. They don't want the Luciferian bastards, I'm sorry, and that's probably a fitting description. They don't want to just kill the dollar. They want to kill the concept of the dollar. This is going to take a multiple number of incidents and more time to get into really people's heads. People must be driven to hate the U.S. dollar in order to like, accept, and even love what comes next. So look for this to happen. Look for what's about to happen, not just in one dramatic crash, but a series of events followed by a period of, getting your mind to register what happened and a soak period into an agreement, acceptance, and acknowledgement. Because this is for all the marbles. This is the big deal. This is killing the dollar. And, of course, we do know that the Treasury Secretary from a couple of years ago, Geithner, told Kyle Bass, well, he wasn't named by name. We just presume it was Geithner because of the description offered, that they're just going to kill the dollar. So this little puke, Geithner, is going to be responsible for the death of many, and the destruction of our lifestyles. When I say our, I'm talking about the middle class, the people in the poverty line, not the ultra rich, of course, and not the people necessarily who are dependent fully 100% generationally on the government for their welfare. But this is a great Ponzi scheme. And you've got to look at it that way, too, as a Ponzi scheme. The setup is getting the most people in, and it's a confidence game. You get the most people in. And only once you have everyone in that you can possibly get in, that's when you take the money and off the table or out of the accounts and run. You either have to get new players into the game or that game is over. It's just taking place right now. And we can see what happened, too, in Ukraine. You don't think that Ukraine, this whole thing, was engineered by the West? Of course it was. You had GRS officers protecting IMF. Well, you had Western, I'll just put it this way. You had Western intelligence protecting IMF officials, security force based from Europe and UN, the IMF. Why? Well, in the course of Putin tearing down Ukraine, we were trying to move them into a U.S. dollar and some combination of the euro and the British pound. The IMF is putting in new political leaders over there. And as I said, the most important game of all is when the first players cash out. They're going to fill up their pockets, their purses, and their briefcases with as much as possible. In the last game, this is what we're looking at, the final game, is exponentially bigger than the first game. So,
and these
there
people,
it is.
They know what the danger they're bringing to current and future generations through their created crisis. Yet at the same time, they say and justify that through their, what they call the natural law or the rule of law, that the most fitting will survive because they're survivors, and those that don't, well, they never deserve to, or through the laws of nature, kind of like the animal world, the way they look at things. The strong survive and the weak die. And sadly, they set it up so we, as a country, are all weak in the sense that we are dependent on their systems, by the taking away of self-sufficiency throughout, since building up America to be self-sufficient, then removing the mechanisms of which people are allowed to be self-sufficient. Their agenda is to move towards their one world peace, and they can't have true one world peace and unity without a world of chaos first. So they balance the pros and cons and see, or in their minds have said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead with our plans, and those not fit to survive will die. And what will come out of that will be our utopia. And that's the sacrifice that has to be made in their eyes. So as we move further down the path of self-destruction, and it's not just, I was talking with Greg Jackson today for a little bit before the show, and it's not just the, people in power, government leaders, talking heads, whoever people turn to as their role models and inspiration. It is just as much fault of the citizens of this country as it is the leaders. Because if the citizens were more attentive, holding people and themselves accountable, we would have never reached this position we're in today. But due to complacency, due to, in some parts unknowingly, in some ways unknowingly, people worrying about themselves and their families and how to take care of that and juggling that with entertainment and leisure, as people generally just want to be free and have the ability to work and spend time with their families and friends, they have looked away.
No, I mean we're forced.
Drop the ball.
Well, 90%, 95% of Americans are too busy having to now work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, just to put food on the table. Right. Those who are not getting the welfare handouts that solely existing on them, and selling their EBT cards for money so they can buy drugs or 50 cents on the dollar, that type of thing. So
in Proverbs 22:3, it says, "A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it." And
well, exactly. And hopefully, to all those tuning into this radio program, you are a prudent man or woman, I believe, because what you're doing is you're finding out what the truth is, and then in your mind making a plan, right? Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing? Yeah. I mean,
can you say that last part again about the?
Listeners of this program, in Proverbs, that proverb passage that you just referenced, by listening to this program, you are identifying the danger, and then in your mind mentally, although we can't lay out this game plan for you to get out of the way, you're going to have to do that considering your own station in life.
Yeah.
All right.
Correct.
But nonetheless, you're devoting 3 hours of your time tonight, other nights, to listening to this program. So you are conforming, I would say, to biblical prophecy or biblical scripture. And also informing yourself. But go ahead.
In some say, any preparation is lack of trust in God, but there is also the thought that
maybe somebody should tell that to Noah, right?
No, there is also the thought that and David Wilkerson says this in his book, that the scriptures make clear that preparation for emergency does not negate trust in God, but rather reinforces it, and gives several examples, from Noah to Joseph, but at the same time, it is our love for the Lord first and foremost, and our following and carrying out His will, that is what we need to do. So if His will for us is to prepare in one way or another, then that's what we do. The problem comes when we think we can take matters and best prepare ourselves without His advice and without
the counsel, right?
Correct.
Yeah, which I get that. So I mean, anyone who reads, who says, "Well, I'm not going to prepare because I have confidence in God," to me is a fool. In fact, worse than a fool, you're an infidel. Well, that is a badge of honor, I suppose, by some. No, you are a heathen, I suppose, at the very least.
And in watching one of his sermons this weekend, it talked about preparations for the end time, and he gets into the verse that says charity. When Jesus says charity covers a multitude of sins, and this is something that we've talked about here a lot. It's not just preparation for us individually or just our families to survive. We're going to need to be able to keep the remnant, those in Jesus alive as well as us, because us alone, we're not going to make it alone. We're going to need to be a family. We're going to need to help each other. We can't, if we're each and every one of us individually are worrying about where we're going to get our next meal and how we're going to do this and that, we're not going to be able to do much. But united, as like the Pastor Langford talked about in Acts, the Church of Acts, how they all had enough for each other and nobody had any need or any want. It's because that they all brought everything they had to the table with everybody else and they shared. But it's going to be something like we've never experienced in our life. The times that we're going through, the forces that are working through from God through nature, that He is the signs He is showing us through this change. We're seeing these superstorms. We're seeing disasters, calamities all across the globe. We're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Fukushima. Actually, we are at the 3-year anniversary of Fukushima.
Right. Before we get into that, I just want to say something more about the U.S. dollar and about what's ahead for us. 11 years ago, on February 20th, this past February 20th, 11 years ago, folks, you remember the Station nightclub fire? It was the 4th deadliest nightclub fire in the U.S. history. It killed 100 people. Well, that was, in fact, that was on or at West Rhode Island, and it was Whitesnake, I think, was the band. I'm not certain. Were playing there, or Great White or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, the pyrotechnics set off this fire. Well, why do I mention that? The reason I mention that is, do you know why? What was the cause of death of most of those people that were killed in that fire? Now, it was a fast-moving fire. It engulfed the club in, I think, just under 6 minutes, roughly 6 minutes. In addition to the 100 fatalities, there were 230 people who were injured. There were only 132 who escaped without being injured at all. It was a high-casualty event. What was the main cause of death of those people in that nightclub? They were trampled to death. They were actually blocked. The exits were blocked by people, and they were trampled to death. That was the main primary cause of people dying in that fire or in that incident. So what does that teach us? We're in that nightclub right now, metaphorically speaking, and the curtains and stage areas on fire, and the flames are now hitting the ceiling.
Yeah,
we need to get to the exits.
And there's a choice: are we going to be one for ourselves and trample everybody and get out at the expense of others, or are we going to come together calmly and find a way we can all make it out of here?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. I used to use the analogy of, well, let's grab somebody's hand and let's walk slowly, carefully, methodically to the lifeboats on the Titanic. Well, now let's switch venues to this station nightclub fire. It's now time to walk quickly and deliberately to the exits. Grab someone next to you and say, let's go, to the best of our ability. It's not time to dawdle. It's not time to, we don't have time to sit, bend down to fix our pant leg or whatever. We've got to get out and start heading for the exits. Remember that Drudge report or the Drudge Twitter message. Have an exit strategy. Well, very well said. And that applies in a number of ways because, see, the thing here right now, the United States is going to become the Fukushima of the world. The U.S. dollar is going to become the most toxic item in the world. And there's going to be hatred of the United States. There's a hatred being generated right now against the United States. We will be the pariah of the world in terms of world confidence. And this is not because of bumbling and stupidity or even left-wing politics, although progressive politics certainly would explain most of it because that is closely allied with socialism and, of course, even fascism. Most people think, well, oh no, fascism's right wing. No. There's a liberal fascism. So, but see, even John in Revelation pointed out, it's the same guy, same family, reinventing themselves over and over and over and over again. Look back in history as well. If you study history, especially recent history, what happened after the fall of the Soviet Union? David Rockefeller went to his vacation home in Georgia, the state of the United States, but Georgia, the satellite of Russia. And, of course, managed affairs from there. So don't you think that the takedown of the USSR, of the Soviet Union, when Yeltsin was favored over Gorbachev, by getting them hooked on the U.S. dollar, was that planned? Absolutely. You think that was this sudden rush for freedom? Well, Walter Cronkite wanted you to think so. We sold the factories, our buildings to China. Our guts are being ripped out of this country. We're well into where the USSR was once at. We just don't realize that at the moment. We're in the opening salvos of hearing the drumbeats of war at the far reaches of the American reach. The expansion of our dollars. New customers can't be found. We can't get Ukraine to take the dollars. If somehow the Chinese can convince them otherwise, they will. Or regardless. Where's this all going, though? I don't believe that, folks, I really don't believe that this is going to come with any type of a nuclear explosion. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, well, okay. Just don't look at the bright flash. But if you read, and I would urge everyone to, if you've got a pad and paper with you, I would urge everyone to do a couple of things, reading assignments. On the American Thinker, or you can just type in a search engine. And remember, here at Hagmann & Hagmann, Google is not a verb. It's barely a noun. But you're shaking your head about.
I'm just laughing at every time that we talk about church and something you say that.
All right, sorry. But search out on the American Thinker, Kernel of Truth, written by Michael Reagan. Read that. Also, Death Race Damascus, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Reread Death Race Damascus. That also appeared at CanadaFreePress.com. And if you go up to HomelandSecurityUS.com, and I know that it hasn't been updated for a period of time, go over take your mouse and hover over special investigative reports, and the one that's not highlighted is special investigative reports. Click on that. There you'll find Benghazi, compendium of reports. In particular, I would ask that you read Lemmings at the Precipice of World War III, Death Race Damascus, and 3 related reports in Benghazi Explained, interview with intelligence insider, and then also the one from November 5th, 2012 is Obama's real world game of risk. Please read those, because what is taking place is the Ukraine is the continuation. What was happening in Ukraine and Crimea is a continuation of what's going on in Syria. Syria is still the prize. Syria is still the prize. Ukraine is, they were setting this up for a 1-2 punch. And don't forget, it was on this program, folks, that you heard that after the Olympics that Putin would come out swinging, and didn't he do that? Because we know, although we really didn't report that much, and we probably should have, the uprisings in Ukraine were going on since November of last year. Well, even before that, but nonetheless. And he did. Within 48 hours after the shutdown of the Olympics, Putin did come out swinging in Ukraine and in Crimea. Well, we all saw this in the symbolism shown at the Olympic ceremonies, Illuminati symbolism. And isn't it interesting that they used a feather associated with the mythical bird, the phoenix, to light the cauldron of fire. The original cauldron, of course, is lit at the temple of Hera, the wife of Zeus or Lucifer. And what we're seeing here is this new empire being created through chaos and destruction. So Snowden has everything to do with this in terms of what he has given to Russia, and as well as what he is. And so what we're seeing right now is just this huge game of chess right now being played out. Don't forget, I would say, too, think very closely. I wanted to see if I want to get into this or not, but the Gog, Magog, the spiritual military entity driving Western conquest of the present world. It's down the road a piece, but one thing that's not is London, the Trojan palace, where St. Paul's Cathedral now stands, plays an important part in all of this. The city of London will, in fact, superintend, will watch over the economic aspects of things. That's where ultimately the city of London, that city within the city, will ultimately be the head of the new currency, the new global reset. When everything goes into one, that's where it's going to be led from. And so there you have it. And watch as well. Just start to connect all the dots. And if you, out of the ashes of the old American empire, will arise the new empire, the new phoenix, the mythical bird, the feathered serpent. This is what's on the plate. Did we not see this? Weren't we warned this? The Olympic rings, the major symbol of the games, the tools in witchcraft, are rotating rings. Well, didn't we see the North American, or the ring reportedly for North America, be dark, both in the opening and closing ceremonies? Do you think that was just an accident? So is that not what the Illuminati is, in fact, showing what they're doing, or what their plans are? Of course they are. So, events are going to quickly increase over the next short term, and I would really watch this period of really April and May. I don't know what's going to happen, if anything, but a lot of bad things do happen between April 19th and May 1st, really the whole month of April or May.
I've heard and read several different time periods that were, as you say, times where things were usually going to come to pass because of the beliefs of the Satanist elites fulfilling or trying to fulfill or thinking they're fulfilling God's will, their God's will.
Of course.
And we are in a time, and I've heard the end of February, early into March was a high time for child sacrifices. I've heard, we know about the 2 weeks in the summer, the Bohemian Grove time.
Right.
Also, in Aleister Crowley talked about the high amount of children sacrifices being done in September and October.
I read some of the most disgusting material here recently about child sacrifice and about long pork, which is code, I suppose, for cannibalism and films being made. Back, this had to be in the 70s, where children were killed, and then the Illuminati meetings. This happened in Europe, and it was filmed, and it was passed around within the Illuminati circles. But what they did was just horrific, and I'm not going to get into it, but it involved children sacrifice and cannibalism. And what happened here?
Troy dropped off.
All right. Apparently, the reason I asked that is I heard that whooshing sound in my headphones. Well, the only reason I bring this up is to say that this is still taking place. In fact, it's taking place. And if you talk to Russ Nistar off air, or if you talk to him, or go to his seminars, this is actually taking place right now. And in fact, it's even getting worse and more overt and more prevalent. And it's sickening, folks. It's beyond sickening. And yes, I did catch in the corner of my eye, yes, Rome will hold the one world. Rome will be the seat of this one world religion where they will outlaw Christianity and, of course, Islam. And it's kind of funny to think that, because Islam fits so well into their process. But you have to think, too, when we get to that one world religion, Islam is going to have its way in changing the laws of our country. Islam is going to have its way of changing the laws of Europe and all Western countries. So they won't need Islam necessarily. In fact, they're going to outlaw any monotheistic religions, or the monotheistic religions of Islam and Christianity and Judaism. So the new religion will, at least is scheduled to be watched over, where its home base will be Rome, the Vatican. And, I get emails accusing me of saying, well, why don't you talk about the Jesuits? Well, what do you think we're doing? You just don't listen to us. Absolutely, we talk about the Jesuits and the role the Jesuits play.
Yeah, we can clarify this right now. We don't sit here and harp on, the Masons, but when we talk about the satanic elite, we're talking about any quote-unquote secret society, organization, any body of people who take an oath to and an allegiance to anybody other than the Lord. So, yeah, if Jesuits, and I know many of them are included in carrying out these evil agendas, are part of it, whether it's Skull and Bones, Masons, whatever the organizational name is, they're included in the satanic elite.
Right. There is a quote I want to just read real quick. It's something I came across here. It's actually from a pope about Masons. I'm not sure if I can find it readily, but the pope, and this is from the early 20th century, said, look, you can't even be friends with Masons. Don't be friends with Masons. I believe it was the Pope who said that. I'll find it. But it was from a papacy Vatican website where they were talking about Freemasonry. And even from a Catholic point of view, don't forget, I went to a seminary, a minor seminary, graduated from a minor seminary. I understand Catholicism. I'm not a Catholic anymore, but I understand that. I understand the mentality of it, just so you know. But it's interesting because, for example, Monsignor Fulton Sheen, remember Bishop Sheen on television?
No, but I'm familiar with him.
Never watched him, did you? Of course, he died long before you were even a twinkle.
I did watch a few things, a few old sermons or speeches he's given here and there. I do know what he looks like. I remember, and it was recently. It was something either in documentary or other than that. But I would recognize him if I saw him on TV. I'd know who it was. I'm not familiar with his teachings or his theology.
Yeah, he lived from 1895 to 1979, and he was known for his works on television and radio. But nonetheless, okay, and you might say, well, he was, whatever you might say about him, the man was absolutely brilliant. But one of the quotes that really, from him, and I don't care who you would ascribe this to, you tell me it's not true. The Antichrist will not be so called, otherwise he would have no followers. Think about that. He won't wear red tights, nor vomit sulfur, nor carry a trident, so on and so forth. This masquerade has helped the devil convince men that he doesn't exist. When no man recognizes, the more power he exercises. God has defined himself as I am who am, and the devil as I am who am not. So nowhere in the scripture do we find warrant for the popular myth of the devil as some buffoon who is dressed like the first red. Rather, he's described as this angel fallen from heaven, as this prince of this world, whose business it is to tell us that there's no other world. His logic is simple. If there's no heaven, there's no hell. If there's no hell, there's no sin. And if there's no sin, then there's no judge. And if there's no judgment, then evil is good and good is evil. But above all those descriptions, our Lord tells us that he will be so much like himself that he would deceive even the elect. And certainly no devil ever seen in the picture books could deceive even the elect. So how will he come in this new age to win followers to his religion? He's a great humanitarian. He's going to talk peace, prosperity, and plenty, not as a means to lead us to God, but as an end in themselves. Now I'm paraphrasing. So obviously, folks, this is what we're looking at. And you think, well, wow, there's so much biblical stuff on a Monday. No, this is part and parcel to, but this is part and parcel to what we're seeing. We have to know the backstory. We've got to know the architecture of what we're seeing in order to make sense of it all. Because when we're looking at the collapse of our economy, we're looking at metals crashing, perhaps too, before they go back up. You're looking at China's growth and power, and you're looking at Ukraine as being a Waterloo event for the U.S. dollar. That, according to Jim Willey as well, from reported by Silver Doctors. And intensifying currency war and their consequences. You know, it's said that when the dollar collapse comes, it's going to happen in two ways, gradually, then suddenly. That formula famously used by Hemingway to describe how one goes bankrupt is an apt description of official state dynamics in complex systems. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to look at, we're already in this gradual, intensifying collapse. Then suddenly at the end, that's when everything is going to go. So, finishing with the first hour, we did cover a lot of ground. We really did. I think it's important for people to understand that right now the problems that we're having the larger picture, the U.S. is being set to be the Fukushima of the world. With it, too, folks, and I mentioned this the other day. What's the goal here? The 10 economic regions. You got North America as being number 1, number 2, Western Europe, 3, Japan, 4, Australia, and South Africa, 5, Eastern Europe, including Russia, 6, Latin America, which includes Venezuela and Brazil, 7, North Africa and Middle East. Egypt is Libya. Look at the Arab Spring. 8, tropical Africa. That includes Somalia, Nigeria, Chad. Look what's going on there. You don't hear about any of this, do you? South and Southeast Asia, number 9. That includes Vietnam, Burma, the ASEAN countries, or ASEAN countries. They're beginning to form. 10, China. This new government structure is being erected through global economics. And don't forget, for those people who are saying, well, Obama's such a bad person. Yeah, okay, fine. But look, NAFTA was started by George Herbert Walker Bush and signed by Clinton in 1993. And going back to some biblical text real quick here, it's interesting, you want to tell what time it is, what time, everyone says no man knows the hour. No man can know the hour, the precise moment, the precise day. Yeah, that's true. But we've been told to learn the seasons. You want to know the seasons? Well, in the context of those 10 nations, or the 10 trade zones, consult Revelation 17, verse 12. Consult Revelation 17, verse 17. In fact, Revelation 17, 12 through 17. And it was in Daniel 7, verse 7 and 8, that World War III, get ready, Daniel saw nations reorganizing. And then only after the 10 trade zones, the 10 regions are formed, the Antichrist appears to take control over those 10 regions. This is big news, folks. This is big, important news. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by the fights at LA Fitness. Don't get distracted by the little things. Know what fits into where. Identify the puzzle pieces. When people tell you that 20 plus dead bankers, 10 confirmed financial people, when that's a good thing, that's a start, yeah, you laugh, you chuckle. The fact of the matter is that's indicative of something else. It's kind of like a cancer. It's kind of a marker for cancer. It's becoming more overt. You can chuckle all you want. You chuckleheads over at the various political forums, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Go ahead and chuckle. I guarantee you won't be laughing. You won't be laughing when everything does come falling down. You'll be doing anything but laughing. You'll be understanding that this is not some Republican Democrat issue. This is an issue of life or death.
And with that, we will take our top of the hour break. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Monday, March 10th, 2014, 3 years out from the Fukushima disaster that struck. We're going to be taking your calls in the next hour throughout the rest of the show. We'll be right back after a number of things in the first hour from Ukraine and distractions. Got an article here, news piece from Israel, the Times of Israel, talking about the hypocrisy, Netanyahu blasting hypocrisy of the West on an Iranian arms cache. Surrounded by a cache of missiles, part of an alleged Iranian arms shipment to the Gaza Strip, seized on board of the Close Sea last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu harshly rebuked the international community Monday for clinging to what he said was the illusion of a changed Iran, even after Israeli raid to intercept the ship uncovered the cache of advanced arms. Before making his statement, Netanyahu was briefed by military officials. Among the rows of weapons marked with the Iranian seals nearly arrayed at the port, the arms, the official said, included M302 missiles with the range of 160 kilometers or 100 miles. The official said the Iranian shipped Syrian-made missiles were capable of causing more damage than the Iranian-made M75 or Fajar-5 missiles used by Hamas against Israel in the past. And this situation with the Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement that is trying to be pushed forward is very troubling, and I believe the Ukraine situation is a diversion from what is really happening with Israel. And we are told about the peace, or false peace, I should say, in the word of the Lord about what is going to happen and how there is no peace on the earth. And just to give a few examples of what the Lord says when talking about peace on earth, aside from his return and his millennial kingdom of peace, there are many references in scriptures that cover this very accurately, and we need to take heed as these things are right in our face. We're living in these times. And in Isaiah, it talks about people forming together for a peace on earth, and there will be no peace on this earth as much as they try to bring it together. Isaiah 48:22, there is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked. It talks about how they are going to create peace, and they shall not know peace. It talks about how through the veil of peace, they have healed their heart, the hurt of the daughter of my people, slightly saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. We looked for peace, but none good came, for a time of health, and behold, trouble. There's many more references. I could go on and on. It gets in so much detail here. It talks about the liberals. It gets into the liberal mindset. When they shall say peace and safety, destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, but there shall be none. And in Daniel, we're told that the league will be made, and what they're going to do is try to bring in peace. Well, we look to the writings of these Satanists, and this is exactly what they talk about. Bringing in a one world order of peace. Now, as we see in the Middle East here, Netanyahu and Obama and John Kerry are moving towards agreement. We have, at the same time, the United States in the Obama administration specifically lifting sanctions on Iran. And this weapons shipment that was seized is of big concern to Prime Minister Netanyahu, calling on the international to wake up and see the truth behind Iran's fake smiles before it's too late, Netanyahu said. World powers must stop Iran from achieving military nuclear capabilities. They would like to continue to build up the illusion that Iran has changed course, but the facts we see on this pier prove the exact opposite, Netanyahu said. So a shipment of some 40 rockets were seized by Israel, these rockets having the Iranian seal on them, as they say. Did you see this story of the seized Iranian missiles off the ship?
Sorry, I had to reach for the mute button. Yeah, I did.
What is your take on this? Do you think that it's Netanyahu saying that Iran is trying to put on a new face of change, that they're some sort of different country than they were years ago, and the United States lifting sanctions on Iran and allowing certain parts of their nuclear capabilities to continue. Meanwhile, we have nuclear scientists from Iran continuing to be assassinating. And there was an article last week where it was said that the U.S. was urging Israel to stop assassinating the Iranian scientists, nuclear scientists.
Well, okay, all of this is just too little, too late. When did the biggest proliferation of nuclear weapons, technology, I should say, not weapons, but technology, when did that occur? Well, that occurred via Pakistan. Think about the 90s, the 1990s, the 2000s. with Pakistan. What role did Pakistan play in the spreading of technology? Folks, do you remember Pakistan? The AQ-Khan network? This is when the technology was given. And if any time it could have been stopped, if it was meant to be stopped, it would have been back then. And people have this tendency to forget history and forget even recent history, late 20th century, early 21st century history, or at least not aggressive. Q-Khan network of nuclear technology proliferation. And then don't forget as well along with this, the yellow cake stuff out of Africa. Remember that scandal? Again, all of this is pertinent to today's headlines. We just have a tendency to look at here the last 15 minutes or the last 15 days, and then there's this curtain of, I don't know what it is, cognitive dissonance or normalcy bias. So the answer to the question is not, rather than look at what's taking place with a current magic show, look at the stage setup. Look at what's all gone into this, folks. Think bigger. See, think bigger. That's the big thing. You've got to think bigger. It's just not one plane, for example. It's the MH370 disappearance. It's just not one nuclear shipment seized. It's just not one incident. It's multiple incidents. And by the way, I did want to mention this too when I was talking about Syria earlier, the last hour. You know, some people will deny this, and it's been denied in the major media. You talk about nuclear missiles. Folks, I really want you to understand, and based on all of the research, all of my connections, intelligence connections, Israel nuked Syria 4 times. Did you know that? Israel used tactical nuclear, well, they're not even tactical nuclear weapons. Israel used nuclear weapons on Syria, or on Syrian weapons, Russian weapons depots on at least 2 different times, if not 4. We're talking about these type of weapon that is advanced and well beyond what normal. So people say, well, if that was the case, then the weapons would leave this signature, this nuclear signature. Well, yeah, under the technology that you know about. Israel's got some weapons that are nuclear, that were used against the Russians in Syria at the Russian weapon depot. If you remember, in late 2012 or 2013, the explosions, and people were saying, my gosh, that looks like a mushroom cloud. And they were arguing on these forums, well, just because it's mushroom cloud, it doesn't mean it's nuclear, and that's true. But they were nuclear, at least these strikes by Israel. And Putin told Netanyahu to knock it off. So now comes the Joe story, and you're asking me my opinion. My opinion is we're well into this game, and that's not a to me that's not a this is not a big story. I mean, it's an interesting story. It's one for media. Yeah. You know, for the media to play with.
Yeah, I just thought in the wake of this peace deal and the time deadlines being pushed, the issues with Russia, Ukraine, by proxy, Iran, Russia, Syria, China, and that we're seeing this for what reason was the first question that came to mind. But Israel, I just see them, they're being isolated, they're being backed into a corner, and they're being threatened. And probably the most underreported yet most important story is this push for this peace deal. I mean, you have a great understanding of what happened with Katrina. Imagine if our current administration actually pushed a peace treaty through Israel, dividing the land. What would happen to this country? It's
good question.
Scary to think about.
I would suggest reading The Harbinger. But by the way, folks in the chat room, I am there right now. Is my microphone clipping in and out?
No, not right now.
All right.
Not that I can hear, at least.
I'm just checking the. Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you. Some people are reporting. I'm getting emails reporting that my microphone's clipping in and out. And the reason I asked this too is since we were hit with that last back in January, it also took out one of our boxes, one of our audio boxes.
Yeah. The thing's just red, all red lights.
It's got a red glow to it.
Oh, so are you using that? But
no, I can't. So I've had to use something different, and so okay. So thank you for that report. I didn't mean to interrupt the broadcast for that. No, so folks, the bottom line here is I really think that what we're seeing right now, and the intelligence source that you heard, W. Also, folks, he was on Caravan to Midnight. And where else was he on? I think he was on with Dr. Robin Falkov.
Well, I know he was on with John B. Wells.
Right, Caravan to Midnight.
Other than that, I'm
not
sure.
And you talk about synchronicity. It was episode 19 in the half hour, the second half, or the second half. So it was episode 19.5. I just... You talk about synchronicity. Okay. Well, yeah.
Moving on here, as we talked about the 3-year anniversary of Fukushima, there is a report from USA Today. Scientists test West Coast for Fukushima radiation. Very low levels of radiation from Fukushima nuclear disaster will likely reach ocean waters along the U.S. West Coast next month, scientists are predicting. Current models predict that the radiation will be extremely low, and the level is so low that they will not harm humans or the environment, said one Ken Bruseller, a chemical oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanography Institution, who presented research on the issue last week. He goes on to say, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. We can make predictions, we can do models, but unless you have the results, we will know, or how will we know how safe it is? The news comes 3 years after the devastating Japan tsunami and resulting nuclear accident. Also, there's reports that scientists in Fukushima misled media in understating how devastating this disaster actually was. But 3 years out. Now, I guess my question is this from the ocean water that was used to cool the reactors after the disaster? Are we seeing these ocean waters with radiation hitting the West Coast? Because we already know the airborne radiation hit the West Coast. We already know the disaster from the tsunami, the debris from the tsunami, reached the West Coast.
Yes, and Joe and listeners, well, I've gotten all of your emails for guest suggestions that cover the gamut of various topics, including but not limited to Fukushima. We are attempting to get a very qualified person that's got the information about Fukushima on. So just bear with us on that. I just want to let you know, do not, in my view, we cannot in any way, shape, or form rely on the mainstream media, the corporate media about Fukushima. I don't care if it's Fox. In this case, I don't even care if it's RT. I don't care if it's any of the networks.
Somebody in the chat asks, should we believe this? I say we believe nothing aside from what we can gain or understand from the Holy Spirit as being true, as the media as a whole, 99.9% of the media is agenda-driven for the purpose of the satanic elite and their agenda.
Right. And folks, look, anyone who sticks to any type of, well, it even goes to the new media or the alternative media or the internet media. It even goes to us. Do we believe? Should we believe you? Why should we believe you, meaning us? That's a good question. Why believe us? Well,
because we said so.
Yeah, because we said so. You're gonna have, folks. You are gonna have to do. You're gonna have to pray about the information. We attempt to present to you, for example, when we have Russ Dizdar on, I totally believe Russ Dizdar, what he talks about. He's an expert in his field of satanic ritual abuse and the Black Awakening. I would not question him at all. I mean, sure, he could make a mistake or two, but in terms of providing the expert information, he would be a tremendous, or it has been a tremendous expert interview for us. And, of course, you've got, for the political side, when I say political, I don't mean political. I mean the socially conservative, for example. People like Greg Jackson, who, by the way, his book is coming out. In fact, we're just able to, Joe and I were able to get a sneak peek at it, 40 Things to Teach Your Kid Before You Die. The simple American truths about life, family, and faith that the secular world won't teach them. Excellent book. Now, yeah, for the conservative, socially conservative Christian, biblical view of life, Greg Jackson's a perfect individual. I mean, I believe 100% what he says, and he's admitted too to changing his mind on a couple of things with respect to, for example, the Patriot Act. Haven't we all been there and changed our minds? What's that old saying? It's hard for me to remember now. If you weren't a liberal at 18, if you weren't a liberal, you had no heart. And if it's 25 or whatever, or 30, you weren't a conservative, you had no brains. Something to that effect. You know what I'm going for, folks. At least most of you do. Well, I guess what I'm saying to you is, we all go through this learning curve because we're not all born. We're not born and bred experts, or we know we're not experts at everything. And we get hoodwinked. I got hoodwinked. I fell for the great lie, the great neocon lie. And if you didn't, well, great for you. Seriously, great for you if you didn't. If you saw right through it, then you're light years ahead of me, or years ahead of me anyway. But you go through this learning process, don't we all?
We have to.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're not growing.
Well, right. And I suppose
it takes humility. I mean, really, it takes humility to be able to learn. And I don't know how or what exact instance, story, experience that you went through that really made you start to listen and open your mind to other possibilities. But we all, and speaking for myself and human nature, we all have this, at first when growing up, we all have this pride instilled. When you're young, you think you know everything, you're going to live forever. At least that's what you always told me. You think you know everything. And I was wrong. But at some point, you have to you come to a realization that you don't know. Not only do you not know what you think you know less than you thought you know. And
that this is a good point to bring up. And Joe, I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad you're talking about this because, folks, we could talk. One of the things that we have to really get our minds around, and I see this in the emails that I get. A lot of emails I get. People will say, well, people will challenge certain things. And that's a good thing, to challenge, to take people to task, for example, intellectually challenge certain opinions or beliefs. That shows me people are thinking. Because if every one of us listening to this show, if we all agreed on everything, it'd be pretty boring, number one. And number two, that means that none of us are really thinking, or just one or two of us are doing the thinking. The rest are just nodding your heads or talking about chili recipes.
I don't know. business in our town that has a few billboards, and every month they put a new message up on their signs. And this month it says the beginning of pride is the end of wisdom. And it's
true.
It's very true. In order to understand what's really going on for ourselves, we must drop all man-made imaginations, theories, and build our knowledge or our wisdom from the word of the Lord. And that is the only sure foundation of truth. And everything else will start from that. But if we don't, and all the other theories, no matter what subject, there's hundreds of, if not thousands of theories for each, from the creationism to, we could just go on, has a spiritual and true explanation, or it has a man-made theory. And 99.999% of everything that's out there today is man-made theory or idea, scientific theory or idea. But we need the precepts of the Lord to be our foundation. And without that, we will be lost. We will be deceived.
Exactly. I want to mention this as well before we move on. I have not had the opportunity once again to finish the investigative report on something that has caught my attention. Very, very astute and extremely good. Well, she's a mother and a wife, but she's also a damn good researcher. Excellent researcher, investigator, as far as I'm concerned. She goes by the internet name Butter D Zillion. I'm not even going to try to spell it. Okay, but she's got a blog. It's Butter D Zillion. Well, I'll spell it. The first part is butter, then D-E, and then zillion, like a zillion dollars. Okay. It's butterdzillion.wordpress.com. She has investigated the Obama eligibility issue, among other things. And, of course, what does it matter at this point, really? I could be like Hillary Clinton at this point. What does it matter? This is something, folks, it matters a lot. She presented her findings, and I referenced this last week, but I just want to reiterate this. She has got a couple of videos up, and once again, I am preparing a report on this, an investigative report, a very comprehensive one, because I think it needs that. I've looked at all of the evidence that she has come up with respect to the crash of Loretta Fuddy and her death of Loretta Fuddy. And I've talked to her on the phone. One thing I found very interesting is she's getting censored. She's getting censored at freerepublic.com. She's getting attacked by this group called Fogbow, F-O-G-B-O-W. They're a bunch of idiots. Sorry, they are. A bunch of idiots that offer no proof. They just attack people, slander people, and create mischief. And in fact, worse, it's my view anyway, to censor the truth. But the crux of this, what she has found, is that the images from the scene of the crash, taken by the guy who just happened to have not one but two, those Go Live or Go cameras or whatever they're called. You know what I'm talking about, the high-tech cameras in the back of the plane. There's evidence of tampering, evidence of editing, evidence of pixelation. I've been able to verify this as I've been walked through and gone through the very time-consuming process of seeing the images being edited, the frames being edited that were taken at the crash scene. So what does this all mean? Well, given the fact that we can't even see the original birth certificate or certificate of live birth, that all we're treated to as a forgery of the Obama birth certificate, and now this. we're starting to dissect and put together or take apart, reconstruct, or destruct, I should say, and then reconstruct the lies. And we're able to find out, and because of investigators and researchers like her, once again, who have been unfairly censored, who have presented their findings objectively, and of course are taken down, or censored, or mocked. I've seen some pretty ugly things, but I got to tell you, I've rarely have seen the ugliness that this woman has had to endure. The reason I mention this again is I believe that there is this thread that is so important that will answer everything from Obama's eligibility to the alleged death of Fuddy, to who's doing all of the forgeries and editing, and this goes pretty deep. The agenda here is pretty deep, and it goes to Subud, S-U-B-U-D, that organization as well. And one thing that I just found it fantastic to think about and to find and to look at, and I give this researcher, Butter D. Zillion, all of the credit, is in part the key, the vital necessity, how necessary it was for this Loretta Fuddy to be put into the position where she was placed for everything to work, and how she came about to being. Now, while investigator, mom, wife, who's taken all the hits, why she put that together. On the backside, my investigation, which abuts hers and complements hers, is the Subud aspect angle to this, which also answers and addresses the Subarka name of Barack Hussein Obama. Bottom line, folks, a great lies are about to be exposed, and bloggers like this woman must be applauded. She's taken a lot of hits. It's not fair. But just watch for that report that I have, because she's going to be front and center of this. And it's a shame, because we're seeing both Republicans and conservatives, even conservatives, if you can believe that, political conservatives, are attacking this woman, are censoring this woman.
Just like Mitch McConnell, talking about the Tea Party, saying any Tea Party opposition in this elections, we will crush them. It is their own eating their own. I mean, we are in such a state of division, and no political solution will save us. As Steve Quill says, there's no political solution to a spiritual problem. They are further dividing the people, from the left, right, far left. This is all theater. It's like football teams. There is no real opposition in the highest levels of the decision makers. As Jesse Ventura said it best, it's like pro wrestling. They pretend to be each other's enemies and duke it out in the public arena, and then behind closed doors they are best friends, and
Perfect example.
Yeah, and it's sad that the citizens of the country and of the world get sucked into this to the point that it absorbs all of their mental thinking and trying to decipher through the left and right and the issues, when there is only one issue, and that issue is, do we have God in our lives? Are we on His side of this fight?
A lot of people are saying, well, we've got God on our side. Are we on God's side? And that's a big question.
Yeah, and stories like this just make me shudder and cringe and think how fast our country could be destroyed and how bleak our future is. National Day of Appreciation for Abortion Providers. Pro-choicers give thanks to abortionists. Monday is not just the first weekday of daylight savings time this year. Monday is also is also a day pro-choicers give thanks to abortion providers. March 10th is the National Appreciation for Abortion Provider Day. And pro-choice advocates around the world are thanking abortion providers for their services. Abortion providers are heroes, reads one ready-made postcard in the 3-to-1 campaign is offering people to send to your local abortion provider.
Marvelous. All right.
A bumper sticker. I love my abortion provider.
It's
Another read.
Too bad that, is it bad to say too bad? Is it? Never mind, I'm not going to say that.
And listen to this last one. Abortion providers honor and respect reproductive freedom.
Well, try respecting the commandments of God's laws, I suppose. One thing that we can get into, Joe, and I think we should, is the showdown that's developing right now between a number of Connecticut state police officers and the politicians who passed the law.
Did you see the police officer that said he would kick down the door?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And folks, I don't know whether you saw that. There was a police officer who ostensibly said through this one individual that he would give his left testicle, and I believe that was the actual statement, to be the one to kick down this individual's door and take his guns from him. Once again, this showdown is developing between a number of Connecticut state police officers and politicians. The issue is the highly restrictive gun control, gun ban, and bans on high-capacity magazines. According to David Hardy, this is a gun rights legal expert and a pro-Second Amendment individual, David Hardy. He reported Friday that 250 law enforcement officers in Connecticut have signed on to an open letter stating that they're not going to enforce the new anti-gun and magazine laws, which they consider to be a violation of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Now, I read this in the Examiner, and I was watching this conversation develop in the Examiner, saying, well, then the police officers should be fired for not upholding the law. And think about that for a moment, folks. Think about that. You're sworn. No, you can be sworn, but instead you're sworn into as a police officer in the state of Connecticut, and they're saying, well, no, we don't like this law, so we're not going to enforce it. A number of people were saying, well, they should be fired. Those 250 law enforcement officers, as well as anyone else, should be fired. If they're not going to uphold the laws of the state of Connecticut, you should change the law, not pick and choose the laws that you're going to enforce.
Yeah, and not to get off subject here, but Holder, I don't know if we got into this last week, Holder is suing to protect Islam. We know that Christianity and Jesus, the cross, and Ten Commandments on courthouse steps are all coming under fire and, being basically removed. Any reference to God is removed from schools,
specifically
public
Jesus
house.
Christ, right?
Right. But here we have the U.S. Justice Department in Philadelphia they're suing the school district of Philadelphia, claiming a rule regulating the length of an employee's beard who is a Muslim constitutes religious discrimination. I mean, it's mind-boggling. We have our top-level officials in the Justice Department suing and fighting for the religious freedoms of others, at the same time working their hardest to prevent any religious freedom of Christians.
Right. And you might think that the two are not related, or one has nothing to do with the other. In the case with the Justice Department that Joe mentioned, Holder is suing on the grounds of codified laws that have been arbitrarily passed or instituted, circumventing the legislative state or federal legislative system. With Connecticut, if you are a police officer, you are sworn in to uphold the Constitution, the laws of the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution does it state that you cannot have a magazine of a certain size, or a handgun, or a so-called assault weapon, or you're not allowed to have like an AK-47 or an AR-15. Nowhere in the Constitution does it spell that out. And if the Constitution is silent on that, then in all, well, not technically, but in all reality, that is a bad law. That is not law. That law is not it's not law. Period. So if you are sworn in to uphold the law and the Constitution, then it's your duty. It's your duty to refuse such orders. Can you imagine? Just imagine this as an example. The next person that says, well, they should be fired if they're not going to uphold the law. Imagine if the Connecticut State Police were told to confiscate all of the newspapers. Or let's say you have to confiscate all of the USA Todays. You have to pick them up. So we're giving you, we passed a law, and that law says that the USA Todays, or every publication except the New York Times, you got to get rid of them. You have to collect them. You have to go to street corners. You got to go into stores to check if they're being sold, or libraries to check if they're being read. Wouldn't that be a problem? Is there any difference? Think about that for a moment. One might say, well, you can't kill, USA Today or a newspaper or a magazine can't kill someone. You can't take a New York or a USA Today into a school and kill 20 kids, right? Doesn't matter. In that argument, doesn't matter.
Like we said, when this whole issue began, when these laws were passed, it's going to depend on the level of aggression of the law enforcement officers, and their orders are going to come from the higher up lawmakers and decision makers of that state.
Well, I find hope, though, Joe. The fact that Connecticut is so progressively infused with progressives. It's interesting because of the numbers. There's an estimated, and I say this thinking that the numbers are not correct. You've got 50,000 citizens in the state of Connecticut who have complied with these unconstitutional gun laws. How many didn't comply? 300,000. Okay, now think about these numbers for a moment. I do believe that the number of people who have complied, the 50,000, is perhaps over-reported. Even if it's over-reported by 10%, that percentage represents a significant number, 5,000. But the 300,000, it's a huge number. It's a huge number who said, no, we're not going to comply. And they're automatically felons. So think about this. In the state the size of Connecticut, I've been to Connecticut, saying no. Now, do you believe, ladies and gentlemen, that Connecticut is going to be ground zero for what is to come with respect to the gun issue?
It will be if they try to do as that cop said.
I don't believe that I don't believe that this police officer who said that is, well, how can I put this? I believe that police officer is probably in the minority. Now, I know folks are going to say, wait a minute, no. But think about this. To make a statement such as that, even if it's a statement that you might say to someone believing it would go nowhere else, to me, that is a very militant attitude and a militant statement. So I believe that right there is being hyped. Okay, if you look at if we're saying that we are being managed, for example, if Joe and Doug are saying that our attitudes, our responses are being managed, we're being kind of pushed in a certain direction by the powers. It's the Hegelian dialectic, I suppose, in one sense, or it's a situation where we are being pushed, edged toward necessitating some sort of response by us, and there's this evaluation of a response. I think that that's probably what this might have been, or after the fact, it's used as such, if you know what I mean. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, the moment, the first door that gets broken down and guns confiscated, the first family dog that gets shot in Connecticut, the first SWAT team raid of a house. I'm talking about specifically conducted by state police of Connecticut. I'm not talking by federal agents, because that will take it to an entirely different level. But if it's done within the confines of the state, I do believe we'll see an uprising like this country has never seen before. I do believe it will be ground zero for something horrific. What are they waiting for now? Why not do it now, Joe? Why not do it now? Why not? What are they waiting for?
Great question.
Folks, I would urge everyone to keep your eyes on Connecticut. I do believe that, and again, look at the numbers. The numbers do not favor the authorities. When I say authorities, of course, tongue-in-cheek. The numbers do not favor them at all. And I do think that there's posturing going on. I just wonder about the 50,000 that cooperated with this particular band that tried to be, I just wonder about the 50,000. Where are your heads at? So those people of Connecticut who went to bed one night as law-abiding citizens, they woke up the next morning as felons, facing prison time. And, this Governor Malloy, there's continuing pressure on these Connecticut residents. Dave Hodges did a wonderful article on this last week, that gun control works, and about gun control in Connecticut is worse. The Connecticut gun ban is worse than Hitler's gun ban. And he's right. If you look at the Nazi Weapons Act of 1938, well, compare that to the Connecticut gun ban, and you can see that what we have in Connecticut is much more comprehensive than the Nazi gun ban of 1938. The lesson of the 20th century genocides can no longer be dismissed as something that could never happen here. It can't happen in America. No, it is happening here. The Patriot Acts, first and second, the NDAA, Executive Order 13603, the NSA. It's all happening here.
Ammo purchases, militarization of police forces.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the door.
The Connecticut right now is setting the particular gun control legislation is setting the stage for this really, I think it's a test or staging the ground for a martial law type situation that will follow, perhaps some event or series of events. There will have to be this disarming of American citizens, or alternatively, let the American citizens go for remember what happened in the 90s with the Rodney King riots? Well, just imagine some sort of event that would spark that type of outrage on a national level. Could it be the fact that the people in power would like to see us shoot it out, kill each other, club each other, stab each other, whatever, and then they come in after the fact and then clamp down, or clamp down as a result of some sort of event that would cause the Rodney King type riots or whatever? Pick an event. But we really need to get serious and analytically and intellectually serious about what's taking place here with respect to gun control legislation across the country. We need to concern ourselves with this. Even if you don't own a gun, even if it doesn't affect you, it does affect you. I mean, if that is to say, even if even if you don't own a gun, it still affects you. It's like the rules against smokers. You might detest smoking. You might detest smoking and everything it represents. But do you not understand the encroachment on civil liberties, on your personal liberties that anti-smoking ordinances have? For example, you can't even smoke in your own car in some places. Again, I'm talking about the social conditioning, not the act itself necessarily, or what it does to you in terms of smoking, but the social conditioning that is involved in this. So we need to be intellectual about this rather than emotional. Oh, the emotions will follow. Once the intellect grabs a hold of, once the intellect kicks into gear, the emotions will follow. But we need to at least lead with our intellectual overview of what's going on. Know that they are coming for our guns. They are going to do this through registration. They're going to do this through the applications system. They're going to do this through healthcare. They're going to do this through the IRS. They're going to do this in every way, shape, or form possible. Obama's going to do it through executive order. You know why? Because he can. You know why? Because there's nobody to stop him. Just watch Connecticut.
When I hit a quick quote from Hillary Clinton today back on the abortion front before we hit our break, and then we will take calls for the rest of the third hour. Hillary Clinton today, 2 days ago, Hillary Clinton calls abortion the bedrock of human development. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton used a Friday speech at the United Nations to tie women's reproductive rights with the broader goal of human development. There is one lesson from the past in particular that we cannot afford to ignore. You cannot make progress on gender equality or broader human development without safeguarding women's reproductive health rights. Clinton said near the end of a speech marking International Women's Day, that is a bedrock truth. And it goes on to say the innocent do not get out alive in Hillary Clinton's perfect world because the bedrock of her world is that the innocent are sacrificed for the sake of the bigger agenda. This is the front runner for the next president of the United States.
Well, and if the black people of America really understood eugenics.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's taking place here, Margaret Sanger, one person, remember Margaret Sanger, Sanger.
Yeah, African Americans are the majority of the people who are aborted. I think it's 53% of the abortions are African American. And furthermore, if you go on YouTube, there are calls made to Planned Parenthood by people saying that they would love to donate high amounts of money, only if they can ensure that that money they donate went to the abortion of only minority children. And Planned Parenthood being very helpful in that regard.
You know, ladies and gentlemen,
it's sick.
That's right, it is sick, because you've got Hillary Clinton, who worships, adores, and calls as her, icon, idol, mentor, so to speak, holds Margaret Sanger in high regard. Folks, please do research on Margaret Sanger, because you talk about eugenics, you talk about genocide specific to the black race. I'll just give you a quote. Like the advocates of birth control, the eugenicists, for instance, are seeking to assist the race toward the eliminations of the unfit. That's Margaret Sanger. Those are the words of Margaret Sanger. And she also selects the blacks as really, it's unbelievable. You talk about racist. Yet the left never says word one about Margaret Sanger or calling Hillary to the carpet about celebrating Margaret Sanger. She was head or was deeply involved in the Negro Project. This is back a ways, right? Folks, do you remember when bathrooms and water fountains had the signs colored and whites on them? I remember when I was a child going to Georgia, or my parents had taken. They knew some people in Florida, and we went down to visit them, and we had a stop. I think it was Atlanta, somewhere in Georgia. It was in the South, I believe it was. But and I was a young child. I mean, very young. But I remember going toward a bathroom, and it was a public place. I don't know if it was an airport or a bus station. I don't. My dad grabbed me by the arm and saying, "No, not that one." I said, "Why not?" He said, "That's for blacks." Well, actually, he said that's for Negroes. I didn't understand that, but anyway, he didn't agree with it, by the way. But it was just one of those things where he didn't travel much. He was a blue collar worker. I mean, going to Florida was a huge deal. I mean, it was like going to Paris. But the fact is, he grabbed me by the arm and says, "No, we can't use that." And I remember that was a phrase. We're not allowed to use that, or we can't use that. But anyway, the Negro Project, Margaret Sanger, which she was involved in, stated aim is to severely reduce or eliminate the reproduction of poorer blacks. How could any person? Do you know this about Hillary Clinton receiving the Margaret Sanger Award? Do you know about who Margaret Sanger was? If you're a black American listening to this broadcast, you better rethink you better rethink your support of Hillary Clinton. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, the 10th day of March 2014. This is a live broadcast. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us and for listening to us and spending your 3 hours with us. God bless.
Up next, and live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 805?
Hello.
Now you're muted.
Hello.
All right. Third time's a charm. 413. 413. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug and Joe. It's Doreen in Massachusetts.
Hi, Doreen in Massachusetts. How's Massachusetts going?
Yeah, I live here, so what can I say? I have something quick tonight. Two things. One, I was listening earlier to Paul Begley's show, and they were discussing this plane that has gone down, and Michael from around the world called in, and they were discussing the fact that these men are engineers that have highly technical knowledge about nano smart dust and I guess some really warfare technology. And I just wanted to get your take on, what you think about. It seems very. It's a strange situation. You were saying earlier that you have to think bigger, but I've been thinking all day and really, really trying to pull this apart and figure out all the little details. They could be huge for implications.
You're correct. And I got an email earlier, and Larry, I got your email, and it raised 2 points. Number one, how do we know there really is a real plane missing as opposed to a completely fabricated story for the purpose of misdirection? And then number two, why are so many news sites giving so much time to this story when supposedly there's no information coming out? Could it be misdirection or distraction? Well, to your point now, who was on the plane and perhaps the 20 or so or 24 people, whatever it might be, could they have been a target, or was there something about them? Doreen, again, I think this is one of those times, and I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I think this is one of those times when we really have to take a look, but do so, but do so from a standpoint of, okay, where does this fit? Does it fit
into the puzzle? Right. I'm sure it does somehow, but Maybe it's going to take a few days or a week or 2 or 3 to figure it out.
And you know what bothers me the most, and Larry's got a point on this, the fact that it disappeared in the manner that it did raises a lot of concern and certainly directs a lot of people's attention to that scene because, man, it just vanished, right? There's like an episode of Lost.
It didn't just vanish. Anyone with common sense should know that, first of all, Boeing has backup for any plane that would go down. They would be alerted as well because of the technology that they have built into any of their planes. This plane deliberately went under the radar for a reason. Was it misdirection? I don't know. All I know is some of the men that were on that plane had the knowledge, very high technology, warfare technology that is the most sophisticated. Smart dust? Come on. I mean, that would be something that maybe a country would.
Let me ask a question though. Wouldn't it behoove, if that were the case, if the powers that be wanted to neutralize those particular people, wouldn't it be to their benefit to stage a crash or to make it look like, man, this plane went down in a billion pieces, and nothing's left of it?
The intelligence that those men had.
Well, I know that, but I know that, but what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be more efficient to convince the public that this thing just exploded by some terrorist act and all the people were dead, as opposed to having this, well, where did it go approach? Because more people are always, they're sucked into the mystery. But I get your concerns, and I don't know the answer.
Okay. All right. Good.
Something to think about.
Fair enough. Okay.
All right.
And one other thing, I just have been looking into quite a bit about Karen Hudes.
Right.
Lately.
Karen Hudes.
And I wish you guys would have her on under your forum and with your questions so that it could answer some questions for me.
Okay. We've had a couple of requests there. In fact, I believe I did send her a request for appearance. This is now a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, and failed to get a response back.
Hopefully she will.
There has been a lot of. She's been the magnet of controversy on a lot of things. We'll get her on to see what she has to say, or at least another.
I'm just trying to decipher. That's all. And the more information that you guys can put out there, the more that all of us get a chance to decipher ourselves.
Right. And I know Rick Wiles had her on, and I from what I understand, the interview went really poorly, and I think Rick had tossed her off the air for whatever reason. I didn't hear the entire interview. But nonetheless, that doesn't affect us, except to say that certainly it'd be an interesting time. And I've watched many of her interviews, and you know what? Yeah, she gets interrupted a lot, doesn't she?
She does.
She can't tell her story half the time. So
that's why I think you guys would be a great forum for her, because you're an excellent. Both of you ask such good questions.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we'll send out another request for appearance, and we'll see what happens. Thanks, Doreen. God bless.
All right, great. You guys have a good night.
All right. You too. Thank you. Moving right along on our calls here. We're going to go to 631 area code next. 631, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Long Island.
What's going on, fellas? How you doing tonight?
Can't complain.
How's Long Island?
I got a couple of... it's not doing too bad. I mean, chemtraily, but besides that, I'm still surviving.
Are you anywhere?
Constitution-free zone.
Are you anywhere by? Are you anywhere by Hicksville?
I'm about an hour away from Hicksville.
Okay, all right.
I'm on the east end.
Oh, okay. Wow. In the okay. Yeah, Joe and I spent a lot of time in Hicksville. Okay.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, all right. What's on your mind?
I got two questions for you tonight. I've been trying to get this one to you for like 2 weeks now. About the Pope saying, I don't know if you covered it or not, about the Pope saying that there's no such thing as hell.
Is this in conjunction with the Third Vatican Council?
I'm not sure. I know that I got this one guy on my Facebook I fight with constantly, and he tried to tell me, he's like, well, the Pope just said that that there's no such thing as hell, and then he showed me like the direct quote or something like that. It's not exactly that there's no such thing as hell, but it's like the idea of a eternal place where we all go to, spend eternal damnation is not real, and I don't know. It just kind of threw me for a loop, because if there's no such thing as hell, why would you say that? I don't know. It's a weird thing to say.
Well, there was some misinformation on quotes from the Pope, and it says it is a hoax.
Well, yeah. He did not say. In fact, what you're referring to, caller, is the reference that the Roman Catholic Church no longer believes in the literal hell where people suffer. That was attributed to the Pope. Now, that he didn't say that. And oftentimes, this is combined with this false Third Vatican Council. There is no Third Vatican Council. That might be a poor choice of words. It was at Vatican II. Was the last one. So don't fall for a lot of the information that's out there that it's being attributed. I mean, we can certainly find issues with many of the statements that are legitimately attributed to this particular Pope in the Vatican without having to invent those. So yeah, it's kind of a bad argument to get into have him show you the exact quote.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And then this other one it actually just hit me right before I got on the phone with you guys. I saw a thing the other day about movie stars. They're going to try to start making like meat cultures or something from movie stars' DNA and samples or something like that. So they're going to try to make it so that you can eventually, like get a sample of your favorite movie star and bring her home and make a hamburger out of her.
Okay. I didn't.
Some random thing I was reading on the internet.
Oh, my. Okay. No, have you heard anything about that, Joe?
No, not at all. Okay. Not at all.
Yeah.
I just think it's messed up because I heard on Alex+Jones a few months ago how he was saying that the government was going to try to force people to give the dead bodies of their relatives. You weren't allowed to bury people anymore or something like that. The government was going to force you to give your body over to the government so they could make it into fertilizer. There was this grand plan to get us all to eat ourselves or some crazy story like that.
Soylent Green. A lot of these, a lot of these things on the internet are just so outlandish. I mean,
this is one of the reasons, back when we were on Lori Roth, she asked us about the kill switch and would Obama, hit the kill switch on the internet. And I said, no, not in my personal belief, not until they really are going to bring things to a head, because it is such a great tool for disinformation and the spreading of propaganda and lies.
They got us chasing our tails. How great is that? Chasing your tail, chasing down these, and that impugns your integrity, and it impugns your, responsible reporting. So, no, don't fall for a lot of this outlandish stuff. Verify.
I knew it sounded ridiculous. I just wanted to come to you guys and see what you thought about it.
Now watch, tomorrow there's going to be a John Goodman hamburger or something, right? Never mind. Yeah.
The one that I read, it was about the girl from the Hunger Games, actually. I don't know if that's supposed to be a pun or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, and certainly I don't imagine too many people falling for the cannibalistic lifestyle, and that's what it sounds like would be. So, yeah, good enough, caller. Enjoy
right.
Long Island there, and don't suck up too much of those chemtrails. All right, buddy. Thanks.
Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. All right, moving right along here, we're going to go to 407. 407, thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Al from Orlando. How y'all doing?
Very good. You going to go to the Prophecy Conference?
Actually, I am going to the Prophecy Conference.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Look us up. We'll be down there with.
Yeah, I know. I've been hearing you guys talk about it, and my wife was pretty excited when I told her you guys were going to be down. So
we have that effect on women. We do.
Yeah, right.
we have that effect on women.
Make them run.
True that.
Yeah, they look at us and they run. All right.
Well, for one, I am gonna be keeping an eye out for you guys. Also, you sent me that book from Paul McGuire, Prophecy in the Future of America. You sent me that book, and you didn't sign it, so hopefully I'm going to find you there and make you sign it, and hopefully get Paul McGuire to sign it as well. You don't send somebody a book, Doug, and not sign it. Come on, man.
Well, only if we can get your signature.
On the bottom of a check, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, people have asked us to sign books before that aren't ours. I mean, if it's not ours, I didn't feel like, to me, signing Paul's book would be defacing it, and I mean that very sincerely. But heck, if that's what you want us to do, we'll do it. Sure.
Yeah, it's a gift, and I'm going to get a picture too if I can spot you guys. It says it's going to be more than 2,000 people, so I'm 6'2", and I'm a young black guy with dreads, so hopefully I'll stand out, and you guys will find me too.
Well, that narrows it down. Our pictures are readily accessible on our website, and you just look for the crowd of roadies and the women fawning and fainting in our presence. And no, actually.
Right.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that we'll. Most of the people, they know us. I mean, you can see our pictures on the website. So look us up. We'll get a cup of coffee. It'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely will. I didn't have anything too serious to talk about tonight. I did just want to tell you guys I was going to be there and really hope to meet you guys. Also, Miley Cyrus is going to be here, I think 4 days before the conference, and I'm planning on going out there and do a little bit of protesting with the family and hopefully with a couple more people. And, if grown people want to go, that's on them. But,
what's Miley Cyrus? What's going on with tell me again why you'd be protesting her? I can't remember what the controversy.
She has her tour going on right now, and it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty vile, the things that she's doing in this concert. And if grown people want to go, that's fine. That's good for them. But if I'm going to be out there for the people that are taking their little girls and their kids into the concert, because I've seen some of the videos from the concert, and it's pretty bad. And like I said, if you got to stand for something, you can't just sit around and stand for nothing. And this is going to be one of my first big chances to get out there and do something. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, good for you, and hang in there and hang tough and do what you need to do, and this is what we need to do. We need to start acting and saying we're not going to stand for this stuff that's being peddled to our children and our children, their friends and us, and I'm with you, brother. So we'll look us up at the conference. It's a week and a half, 2 weeks away now, and
yeah, it's coming up pretty soon. I'm super excited. So I won't be there the first day. I actually work for a football team in Orlando, so that's our first game of the year. But I will be there the next day. Hold on, son.
We hear him calling for Daddy.
That's why I had to run away from him. I don't want no voice recognition on here, so let me just run away from him real quick.
Well, we'll cut you loose and we'll talk to you down in Orlando. Thank you so much. All right, buddy. Thank you.
God bless you.
All right.
It's a family affair.
I can't wait to go down there and meet all the great speakers that have been guests on our show and all the great people that are listeners and friends that are going to be down there. It's so awesome. Even when we went to Canton for Russ Dislar's conference, the people that we met there were just fabulous. Same thing with Apex, North Carolina. Couldn't meet a greater group of people.
Well. Yeah, it's some of the best memories are the people that we meet and have the chance to talk with, and it's just sad that we can't sit down and spend a lot more time. But
we'll have some time down there.
But with the people at Orlando in this conference, the people that are speaking are the ones that we really need to listen to and we really need to pay attention to. We know that's why we're going down there for the information. We really need to pay attention to these people and what they're saying. So, all right.
575. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
You mean I'm on radio?
Live on air.
How you doing, Doug and Joe?
Not bad. You're talking to about 5 people right now, and that's all. So feel free.
Oh, okay. Listen, I was listening to John Moore's broadcast today.
Oh yeah,
Have you listened to it?
No, but I've gotten about 100 emails about it.
I saw a comment about it being kind of he had a guest on who was talking about
the 11th of April. One of them was the 11th of April about the economy going, and then the one in October between the 10th and the 20th. There's supposed to be an asteroid come down here in the Caribbean.
All right. No, I've heard about that. What's the magic of the 11th of April with the economy? Tell me how someone can predict with precision. And I look upon, if somebody's, and I got to tell you, caller, and ladies and gentlemen, this goes for everybody. If somebody came up to me, if I had this deep insider intelligence source who came to me and said, on April 11th, this is going to happen, and lays out this plan, I would have to look at that person and say, I mean, there would be so many questions and so many concerns, because if you've got that level of precision,
Doug,
yeah,
I'm just stating. Listen to John Moore's program today, okay?
I'm going to do that.
And because the guy he brought on, he runs his predictions. He's about 100%. He's military, ex-military, and he has a lot of contacts. So, I'm just saying, just listen to what he had to say today and make your own decision.
Okay, I will do that. What's your feeling, though, caller? I want to hear what you think about it. I want to hear what you think about it.
What I think about it is through Jesus Christ, okay? And a lot of the statements he said are coming true. There was a pastor down in Puerto Rico that had a vision, and this asteroid supposed to hit the west of Puerto Rico. And he died in 2011, and it was supposed to happen after he died. So what this guy was saying was that NASA knows that this is going to happen. And there's already FEMA camp that is already down there. They've got coffins. They've got military people. It's all stashed up in the mountains.
All right.
And that's proven. You can go back on YouTube and pick up some of that stuff. They actually are in Puerto Rico.
All right. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to listen.
Research it, because I've done my research on it, and it's coming.
How much damage? Western or the Caribbean, but that would affect the entire eastern coast, right?
Well, it's going to hit on the west side of Puerto Rico. It's going to cause a 1,000-foot tidal wave to come in on Puerto Rico. It's supposed to hit Venezuela, up through Mexico, the coast, and I think Florida's going to get hit the worst. And that's all I know about it.
All right.
Judging, by his dream.
Okay. And they wrote letters to NASA, tell them that, hey, this is going to happen. And all of a sudden the Navy's down there and setting up things. All right. Interesting. Now, what about the economic aspect in April?
Okay. He's done calculations on everything, and I can't remember everything that he said about it, but he says he's got an 85% chance. We have an 85% chance on April 11th everything's going to happen. I mean, everything is going to come together and cause a collapse.
Okay.
Listen to it. He explains it better, you know.
Okay.
I mean,
I will do that.
Listen, I'm 65 years old. My memory's not the best thing. So, you know, listen to it. Make your own judgment.
All right. And I just opened up one of the 100 emails. The gentleman is Bob Gaskin. He's got block. Okay, that's who was on. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, and I know John Moore does a good job vetting information, so I want to thank you for that.
Well, I trust him. You know, I trust him. He, you know, of all the people that's on YouTube, he's the only one I really trust.
Well, I got to tell you, he's been a cop and homicide detective, and so he's been there.
Me and him were in Vietnam at the same time too. So.
Oh wow. All right.
Them days are over with.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Well, thank you for your service, man.
Joe. Doug.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving right along here. Let's see if we can go back to our other international or 111 caller. 111. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. All right, I'm going to hit mute, and then I'm going to hit unmute again. And caller, you are live. Okay.
We can hear background noise.
240. 240 is up next. We're going to come to you now. What's on your mind tonight, caller?
Hi there, Doug. Hi there, Joe. Fantastic show with John Moore Friday. I have a problem, this a side note, I do have a problem listening to you live, and so I normally have to wait till it's over and then go back and do the rebroadcast. I don't know why that is. I have, my Wi-Fi that actually we just got upgraded and everything a few months back, and then I used to have to listen to you over my 4G on my phone, and still it keeps coming in and out. But got lucky tonight and was able to listen to most of the show. I wanted to say concerning the last callers, I really like John, and I usually just listen to certain things that I come across on YouTube. However, what attracts me to your show more than any other show is the fact that you're investigators, is the fact that you really do your research beforehand. And I'm the type of person that's, I'll believe what you say, but I gotta have some background information. I gotta have some, some sense behind it. There's a lot of stuff being floated out there. And as far as the space and the asteroids and the Planet X and all of that, I can't grab on to that. But that's my 2 cents about that. But it was a fascinating interview, between Mr. Moore's voice and Doug, your voice, I was in heaven if we'd have had
John Wells.
What's his name? Yes, if we had the three, John B. Wells, if we had the three on together, I'd be in heaven. But anyway, I called mainly. I got off on something else there. I'm sorry, but I called mainly on the Russ Dizdar show interview, and
okay.
I've been listening to, I guess about a year and a half or so. I am, the more I have listened, I was born again about, I guess about 3 years ago, probably. I was raised by an atheist liberal.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. My father left when I was young, and he was Army intelligence and conservative, and but anyway, it was, you know, the kids were with Mom in those days. But anyway, so I was born again about 3 years ago. And the more I dedicated myself to Christ, I'm finding that I'm experiencing activity at night that I think is what they're calling the sleep paralysis.
Okay.
And what it is I'm laying. I've experienced stuff in the house before, but nothing that's scared me. But I would lay in bed still, and I have a cat. So sometimes I feel like it's my cat that jumps up on the bed, and it walks the outline of my body. And it walks, you know, it'll step between my legs and around my feet, and it'll walk up alongside my body. And it's terrifying. I have.
Let me stop you there, caller. Let me ask you this: do you feel that the cat is reacting to something, or do you feel that the cat is?
Oh no, the cat's not there. No, the cat's not there.
Yeah, she's talking about what she feels. It feels like the cat is walking the outline of her body.
Oh.
Correct. That's what it feels like, and I always would think it was the cat. And I would look down. Of course, now I know that's not the truth, but now I'd look down, and the cat's not there. You know, this is, and I never realized that I was paralyzed, but I was frozen in fear. And then, you know, because I would always just say, oh, well, you know, maybe it was a cat, and I just was unable to see him or whatever, but I know differently. I either had my iPad on or some kind of nightlight in there where I can see. And this went on for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe. And then I had a situation where it happened, and I just closed my eyes, and then I had a breath in my ear. And the breath was ominous, and it blew my hair away from my ear. At this point, I'm praying, you know, for Jesus Christ, and that I'm protected by the light of Jesus Christ, and just over and over and over, and it would go away. But I'm assuming this is what he's talking about as far as sleep paralysis, or about I mean, I see nothing other than what I feel. But it seems the more I am dedicating myself to Christ, you know, the frequency in which this is happening is happening more as well. So I'd be interested to know if other people are experiencing. I mean, I heard y'all talk about this uptick of this rise in this in these type of activities and demonic activities, and you know, it happened. It happened to me. I can't discuss it with anybody.
I've had it happen to me also.
Yeah, I can tell you that Joe's had it happen to him as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in one instance that I've talked about on the air, I had my eyes open, and I was, you know, when you're in that state, you're struggling with every ounce of strength to move, to scream, to get yourself out of that. And my wife saw me struggling, and she kind of slapped me in the face, and I saw her do it. I had my eyes open, and when I was able to talk, I said, "Did you see me looking at you?" And she said, "No, your eyes were closed." But I've never had something where I felt was evil around me at this time. It's just a feeling of complete paralysis, wanting, when I come to the realization that I'm in that state, wanting to just get out of it any way possible. But I've never had a kind of spirit apparition or anything.
Maybe we can help you, caller, if you want to send an email, and in the subject line just put sleep paralysis. I can get it to Russ, and perhaps have Russ email you to tell you what might, how you could perhaps insulate yourself more.
Right. That would be
because,
fantastic.
Yeah, we can't let you hang out there in this type of condition. My goodness. So I feel.
I'm not. I mean, like during the daytime, I don't feel oppressed or anything. I just when this does happen, and other things have happened. We've had orbs and so forth in the house. But when this happened, and I'm not New Age. I'm far from it. When this happened, I feel that I'm scared to death. That I'm frightened. And that I'm scared that this is going to start happening more and more, or that I'm scared that it's going to follow me and happen during the day. I just find it interesting that the more I'm reading my Bible and the more I'm dedicating myself to it, that it's happening more and more. So,
some advice I got about this, and it sounds like you're already practicing this. If this does happen to you, praying and asking for the help of Jesus is the one thing that you need to do. Also, try not to sleep on your back. I heard that doesn't happen as much if you're not on your back.
Well, with regard to the former, Joe, Steve Quayle, I've talked to him about stuff like this before, about other people in matters. Speak with authority, command any type of demonic entities to leave in the name of Jesus Christ, and keep doing that. Now, with regard to the former, sleeping on your back, I don't know.
Oh wow, I'd sleep on my back quite often too. But I'm just not sure, what to do. I don't have a church in my area that I go to. I've tried different ones. They're all compromised. They're all the 501c3s and whatnot. I have my iPad, my internet, and my Bible, and that's and then you guys who I just don't miss a show. Sometimes I have to listen to it the next morning, but I don't miss a show, and you really keep my hope up and mean a lot to me, and for that I'm forever grateful.
Well, thank you, caller. And I'll tell you what, just simply send me an email in the subject, just put sleep paralysis. And what I'll try to do is, I know Russ is on the road and busy, but I'll try to snag his attention and have him give you a little bit of advice, even if you want to include a couple of sentences of what's taking place. And I'll just tell him that you and I spoke, or, you were on the radio and we spoke, and we'll go from there. Hopefully we can get you some definitive very precise advice as to what to do. But keep praying and claim dominion over those spirits, or, in the name of Jesus. That's the best thing I can think of doing.
And that's, absolutely. That's what I started doing when I found out that, this is obvious. Well, after the breath in my ear, it was kind of a breath growl type thing in my ear, and that's what that's really got my attention. So
that would get mine too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would really appreciate that. I've called once before, and I'll call again. I've got a million things to talk about.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We got about 2 million points of view to offer you when you do call in with a million questions. All right.
Well, I'll count on that. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and I will send you over an email, Doug. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
God bless you, and have a good night.
God bless you, too.
I got to just tell you this, Joe. The other night, I've been, I more often than not, I'll sleep in the den on the couch for a lot of reasons.
I thought you meant the den, like at your head on the keyboard.
No,
never mind. Okay.
Sometimes I do fall asleep in the office, but we have a den at my house, and my wife's a light sleeper, and our schedules are so off, and I'll sleep on the couch, and I did get in my ear this growling, this snarling sound at one point, and it did scare the heck out of me. And of course, it was our our canine king, German Shepherd. No, I mean, we get King, the German Shepherd. You see, 140 pounds of just sometimes just pain in the butt, obnoxious attitude. I love the guy, but I'll tell you what, sometimes at 2:00 in the morning, if he wants, decides he wants a bone, and anyway, he was growling and snarling and trying to get my attention by putting his nose up against my face, thinking, hey, it's like 2 PM. Well, it's not. It's 2 AM. But yeah, beyond that, my goodness, it's not good if you don't have a dog.
Let's take some more calls. 501 area code. We're going to come to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Is this me?
That is you.
501. Hi, this is Pat. I just can't believe I get to talk to you. I found y'all through Steve Quayle back when I decided that the mainstream was not giving me the right news. I'm so glad I found y'all. Your program is wonderful. I would love to see Steve Quayle or somebody go into a little bit more detail about why Christians actually need to prepare. I'm surrounded by Christians who think, there's a rapture. I'm out of here. I think there's a post-tribulation rapture. I don't believe in the pre. But they're just going along happy-go-lucky. And it's war when you mention to them that maybe you might ought to prepare. Do y'all get that too? Is it just me?
No.
Oh, man.
We get it, and I understand it. And just to give you some insight, from my own personal experience, I was never taught one way or another to a pre-tribulation or post-tribulation rapture. So
I was taught free. Hard to get out.
Since the starting of our show here, obviously it's been an issue of contention. So I decided to do my own homework and to study the scriptures and to pray about it. And what I was shown is that the rapture is the resurrection. And when it happens, I don't know, but I do know that we will see tribulation here on earth. And it's not a bad thing, because we're told by the Lord that we're to be joyous in tribulation, as it helps shape us to become spiritual beings for Him. And I'm not talking about being killed to be spiritual. I mean, it does a work in us. But there is a point where the dead in Christ will rise first, followed by those left here on earth. And we're told to overcome through the tribulation. And those that overcome, will meet with the Lord, and those dead in Christ first. And it says, immediately after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. And then He'll send His angels with the sound of a great trumpet, and they shall gather together His elect from the four winds of the four ends, the four corners of heaven. Now, there is obviously different belief systems, as you pointed out, and some people who believe in a pre-tribulation rapture vehemently oppose any other teaching or understanding. Well, even what I've learned and been shown, if the Holy Spirit does not tell me it to be so, then it's not 100% in my mind. And I don't know for 100%, so I do keep an open mind. But from everything I've learned, and this is something that I need to pray about more, that we should be prepared in our heart no matter what. The rapture has no bearing on our salvation.
Yeah, and if I can just throw my 2 cents in here, then I'm going to shut up and turn it back to the caller. But let me give you my 2 cents. And because I've seen this as such a divisive thing with Christians, I cannot believe how... You mentioned the word rapture in a chat room or on a forum, and literally all hell breaks loose, and I mean that, because I truly believe that. So now, having said that, here's my position on it. I don't know. Okay, that's my position. I don't know. However, my question to those people who adhere to a pre-trib rapture, what's your plan B? That's all I want to know is what's your plan B, because
I think that's what I was trying to ask.
Okay.
If I'm wrong and they're right, yay. But if I'm anywhere close to right, then they're not preparing. They don't think they have to.
Isn't that and if you
not spiritually? I mean, like with the food, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And by the way, and you make a good point, because, and I don't mean to interrupt here, and again, I'm just going to give my 2 cents and shut up now. But you know, let's just say that you believe strongly in a pre-trib rapture. Fine. Then the people that you're leaving behind, shouldn't we have some provision for those? Okay. Now that aside, okay. Now let's just push this aside. To those pre-trib rapture people, have you studied the origins of rapture? Have you consulted with some luminaries? Have you talked to people like Pastor Langford and studied the material that he's provided? All of this. And if you have, and you're still convinced of a pre-trib rapture, then if all of those people, in your estimation, are incorrect, where there will be, or correct, or if they're led to be correct, and you're not raptured out before the tribulation period, then my question is, will you be deceived into thinking that everything's been a lie, and what will that do to your faith?
Yeah.
So, and then I'm going to shut up.
Add this: everybody and anybody should do this, no matter what your belief is now. Put it aside and dedicate yourself to study and find out through the Word and through prayer. No matter what your pre, post, mid, whatever the belief is, put that belief aside, keep an open mind, and go back through the Scriptures and study them and see with the Lord if you get a different answer. And that's all that I can ask of people to do, and I think that's what the Lord asks of people to do with all Scriptures, no matter what they are.
I guess so. Just looking for that miracle spark. Lights on.
Well, I don't
find it for them.
You know what? I don't think you're going to find it. I think that there's a lot of people out there who are so really protective of that doctrine, of that belief, that it wouldn't matter if you had the answer or not. And that's not to say that they're wrong. It's to say that they're very closed-minded. They're very convinced in their faith. So, you know, but the bottom line is, look, I don't know. I don't claim to know. I don't know. All I can do is I'm still researching, but I lean certainly on the side that no, you know, there's not going to be a pre-trib rapture. That's my personal belief, and I'm not saying it's right. So.
Oh, I understand. Well, thank you.
Well, God bless.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Right. You too.
Thanks.
God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We got about 9 minutes left. We're going to take a few more calls here. We're going to go to 603 next. 603, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug and Joe. This is New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. It's great to talk with
you.
New Hampshire.
I know. I've called in many times before, and I said that this time I'm going to talk slow and not give a whole lot of information. Could I address the woman who feels her cat walking up her bed? Would that be all right?
Sure.
I also, when I'm laying in bed at night, feel as if one of my 3 cats are walking up the bed, and he's not, because I'll look. But I wanted to encourage her to open her Bible to Luke 10:19, and I wanted, since I heard Russ Dizdar, I've been going on to his website. And all day during work, I've been learning about demons, how they work, who they are, how to combat them. And Joe said once that knowledge is power, and many other people say that. And it's so true, because it'll take her fear away. But if she opens her Bible to Luke 10:19, red words of Jesus saying, "Behold, I give you the authority," and it's to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the powers of the enemy, and nothing by any means hurt you, and not to rejoice in it. that they are subject. They're subject to you, but it's I give you authority. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the bright morning star, the Alpha, the Omega. He gives you the authority. And I think that I heard Russ say in one of his teachings that there is a spirit of fear, and if you're fearful, that they're just going to mess with you. But Jesus says, miss, that I give you authority, and that gives me so much courage. And that's all. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you guys. You guys are my church. I think a lot of us, I guess it's not all I wanted to say, a lot of us came out of pre-rapture, and we're churchless. And YouTube is really quite awesome because you can listen to Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle, and you can listen to Hagmann and Hagmann over and over. So you're kind of like our church home base here.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much for your belief and your trust in us. And you know, we make mistakes, and sometimes, look, we don't claim to know everything. And appreciate you giving that advice too, Diddy.
God provides. He really does. He really does. Thank you, guys.
God bless. You take care of yourself.
Good night.
Thanks for the call. I want to address an email. Thanks, R, out there. You know who you are. Thank you, R. And talking about the rapture, Joe, and it's kind of a lighthearted email. Yeah. It is. And, you know, Joe sounds so enraptured tonight, and Doug's 2 cents was cute too. I was touched. But the important sentence here, and I respect this. I do. Lots of rapture errors out there. Problem is people taking Revelation and making it ping-pong back and forth in time out of context. And you know, looking at this, I agree with that. I agree with that statement. Yeah. I do.
So many times people take Scripture and try to incorporate it into their belief system, and which is a huge fault of man and a lot of men, because our mind cannot fathom what. And Jesus said it to his disciples, you do not understand worldly things, how can I teach you things of heaven? And we do limit the Lord, and we do put him in a box, as people say, too often. And I've done that so many times, and it's a mistake. And you're muted.
I agree. I muted I was actually hot, and I muted myself. That's interesting. Well, look, folks, we've got about 5 minutes left of the program. Can we fit another call, or should we let's try one more call?
We'll take one more call. 269. You are our last call for the night. Welcome to the Hagmann Report.
Hello?
What's on your mind? Hi.
Hi, Doug and Joe. I would also like to address the woman with sleep paralysis.
Sure.
I have experience with that, and I just want to encourage her that the Lord will not allow anything to happen to her that she can't handle. So she can handle this, and I would encourage her to look up the verses that relate to overcoming fear in the Bible, and just meditate on those verses, because when I went through it, it took me several weeks to have that spirit of fear leave me. Just because I was so, it was battle after battle, for several weeks of these demonic activities going on. So I'll also tell her to speak audibly. There's one thing with praying in your mind, to the Lord, but speaking, and the other caller was mentioning the authority. Like, we do have authority through Christ to combat these demons and stuff. So she needs to talk out loud. Out loud, she needs to audibly say, in the name, power, and authority of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave. And just keep talk. So the Holy Spirit will lead her through this. She'll keep saying whatever whatever comes to mind, whatever she feels that she needs to say. When she feels a sense of peace, that she'll know that it's okay to stop And I mean, it might go on for a long time. I've had nights where I, had to do this and, cast demons out for, 20, 30 minutes and then follow it with praise and worship. And, I mean, even speaking in tongues, sometimes you don't even know all the right things to say. So speaking in tongues is the language, the Holy Spirit gives us to say the things that we might not be able to say. And also Satan can't intervene with that audible speech because, it's only a language that the Holy Spirit understands. So that would be my best advice, and I'll be praying for her and just want to encourage her that she can do this. She has the authority, and the battle is won in Christ. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for the call. All right. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night. One story here before we close out. I just saw this. TSA purchases 1,980 sticks of dynamite to go with their 3.5 million rounds of ammo. Kind of